Okay, well, welcome everybody. So we're about to have our two featured readers. We're going to start with Helen Ogden, and I'm going to introduce her, and then I'm going to turn it over to her. So Helen Ogden took a deep dive into haiku when the pandemic forced her to slow down and become more appreciative of her immediate surroundings. Having had until then a superficial understanding of haiku, she had sometimes used it in her work as a speech language pathologist when teaching children about sounds and syllables. As her knowledge of the gender deepened, she began to read and write haiku and joined a number of haiku groups, including Haiku Poets in Northern California, Yuki Tiki Haiku Society, and Haiku Northwest. Finding the Central Coast to be an unending source of inspiration, she has gone on to have her work published in a number of print and online journals. She has won the 2020 San Francisco International Haiku Competition and the 2021 Frost Entomological Museum Hexapod Challenge. I hope I got that right. Was highly commended in the 2021 Jean Murtha Memorial Syndrome Contest, received honorable mention in the 2021 HSA Brady Memorial Syndrome Contest, and was shortlisted for the 2021 Haiku Foundation Touchstone Award. She continues to hone her skills under the mentorship of Chuck Brickley through the Haiku Society of America mentorship. And here's Helen.
You're on mute, Helen.
Thank you, Deanna. Yeah, thank you, Gary. And just to mention, my last name is pronounced Ogden, as in Utah, or Nash. So thanks, Gary, and also to the Haiku Poets of Northern California for inviting me to share my work with you today. I'm really humbled and honored to be reading to this welcoming and supportive group of haiku poets, and especially to be reading in the company of Gary Hotham. I'll be sharing a mixture of published and unpublished poems. They were all written during the pandemic, which is when haiku became my happy place, although some of them are based on past memories. And I've been blessed to have Chuck Brickley as my mentor on this journey into haiku land. Any skill that I have is thanks to his patient coaching. And though I am a speech language pathologist by profession, I don't consider myself a public speaker. So if I sound a little bit nervous, it's because I am. I'll try to read slowly. I'm only going to read each poem once. I'll try to keep a bit of ma between each haiku as well as within. And I want to throw a shout out to Deanna Bassist for helping me in selecting and rejecting some of these poems for the reading. So I'm going to begin with a few based on my experience, or all of our experience really, with the pandemic. St. Patrick's Day, drinking green beer to chase away the blues. Surface tension, a new social bubble brings us together. Virtual visit, pouring my own cup of coffee. Our better angels gone AWOL again, second lockdown. White-crowned sparrows embellishing their song. Citywide lockdown. The smoothness of the worry stone, my waning immunity. Falling leaves, the unexpected weight of her ashes. Counting what we've lost, out of fingers, out of toes. My other happy place during the pandemic was my volunteer work with the California State Parks, by becoming what is called a long-term volunteer. My husband and I were able to go out on our own and work on projects in a park of our choice. So we chose Garrapatta State Park on the Big Sur coast, just south of us. And much of what we do there is habitat restoration, although we also pick up a lot of trash. So this next group of poems is inspired by that place, which became our home away from home during the pandemic. Parts of a flower, my blossoming vocabulary. Against all odds, I plant seedlings. Climate change. A covey of quail emerges from the brush. Ripgut brome. Somewhere in the underbrush, the snake that shed its skin. Winter solstice. How quickly shadows climb the canyon walls. Each branch, a brushstroke. Winter tree. So living where I live, I spend a lot of my time near the ocean. And in this next poem, the word rhyme is written R-I-M-E, although I think it could also be written R-H-Y-M-E. River rhyme, snow melt begins its journey to the sea. Where salt meets fresh, night heron. Winter morning, before and after, in the curve of each wave. Just offshore, that rock I keep mistaking for a whale. Evening calm, a raft of otters cradled in kelp. Changing course, the atmospheric river bends north. As Pacific Grove is located on a point that juts out into the Monterey Peninsula, we get a lot of coastal fog. And this next poem is the one that won the 2020 Haiku Poets of Northern California haiku competition. And it's pretty much what encouraged me to keep writing. Morning fog. The day awaits its own arrival. So while during the day, I spend a lot of time looking at the ocean, at night, I do like to look up to the sky, at least when it's clear, which isn't that often here. This next haiku is inspired by something I learned while I was traveling in Peru a number of years ago. And it seems that the Inca used to name the dark parts of the sky. And I suppose that in ancient times, those unpolluted night skies were really mostly stars, and it was the dark areas that stood out. So I'm honored that this is the one that made the shortlist for the Touchstone Award this year. Ancient wisdom, naming the negative space in the sky. Insomnia, the trajectories of stars become familiar. A break in the clouds, Orion's belt unbuckles the sky. Open curtains, late night pillow talk with the waxing moon. Night walk, the stray cat and I sharing stars. Blood moon, the phlebotomist tells me I have beautiful veins. My fasting panel comes back negative. Hunger moon. So while I spend a considerable amount of time doing habitat restoration in the state parks, I also have a very neglected garden back at home. And but the birds and the bees and the deer don't seem to mind too much. Deer scat. I scanned the garden for casualties. After you left, knowing and not knowing the names of birds. Finding its way upon the trellis, the scent of lilac. Apology, the first white peony unclenches its fist. Making amends, the peace lily blooms again. Winter pruning, another haiku takes shape. This last one is a monoku. This next one, blood sisters, the pruned rose and I. And then what's a garden without bugs? Rinsing chard, hidden in the folds, a ladybug. Bundling bees with my flowers, farmer's market. High tea, the wasp and I share clotted cream. A spider in a cup in the cupboard. Spring cleaning. A cluster of spiderlings exits the egg sac. Summer squall. On every fence post, a dew-flecked spiderweb. His diagnosis. Well, even during pandemics, as Mary Oliver would say, the world goes on. Record drought remains in what remains of the reservoir. Where wetlands were, the misplaced trust of migratory birds. Unsettled weather over Ukraine. Storm moon. Urban sprawl. Another tent rising in the underpass. This next one is also a monoku. Abortion law. I look up Lysistrata. Red tulips in reception. Abortion clinic. Coming out. The abortion I kept to myself. So while we were all confined to quarters, reminiscing about past travel became one way to travel to escape to distant places. Off the grid, my inner compass finds true north. Taking the long path to enlightenment. Annapurna. Antarctic dawn. The deafening sound of silence. Another pilgrim sheds his boots. Finistère. So while the pandemic was hard on many relationships, fortunately for me, my husband, Rick, lived up to his nickname of Rock, and we are still going strong. It may have helped that over the years, we've spent a fair amount of time in confined quarters together, such as boats and dark rooms. Your hand in mine, the warmth of our emerging lifelines. The touch of you still lingers. Lucid dream. Bioluminescence. We shower each other in stars. In the dark room, your portrait, so many shades of gray. Open window on this sultry afternoon. What will the neighbors think? Umami, after foraging, me and you. Well, thank you. I hope I haven't been guilty of oversharing. Thank you for listening, and I welcome any constructive feedback. I'm very much in the learning phase of my writing, so I'm going to put my email in the chat, and I hope you feel free to give me any constructive feedback. I'll love it all. So thank you so much for your attention.
That was very lovely, Helen. Very nice. Great work.